The game is over.
With a shot blocked. Eberle in front for Schwartz. They score! Hey, hey! What do you say?
Ground early. Now the cross out to Nor. What a save by Fry!
What's going on, Seattle sports fans? We're back for another episode of the Seattle Sports Scene. As always, we are your co-hosts. I am that Kraken fan, and with me is Seattle Sports Season. We have a lot to unpack in this episode here, as we're going to be talking about the Seattle Mariners. Playoffs are here. Last couple of series went exactly how we expected them to, except for one. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But we're super excited to have our Mariners back in the playoffs. We're going to be unpacking a lot of playoff talk here in this episode. But before we get jumped into all that wonderful, juicy content, let me pull in my co-host. Seattle Sports Season, we're back in the playoffs. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. Mariners back in the playoffs. Seahawks are cooking. My BYU Cougars are 4-0 and ranked. So
yes, sir.
My sports life is good right now. So glad to see everybody having success, and just let's keep. I want to see them play so bad. Saturday cannot come soon enough.
Oh my gosh. No, but thank goodness it's on a weekend too, because I was worried at first that I was going to be at work while the first game happened, but it's on a weekend. No excuses. Got to watch that game. We'll be lining up against the winner of the Detroit-Cleveland series, which Detroit leads right now, I believe, after winning today. And like I said, we'll talk about upcoming playoff stuff and playoff predictions in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about the last couple of series to the end of the season. Mostly wanting to talk about that Astros series that kind of sealed the deal, and that Rockies series. We all know how the Dodgers series is going to go. Most of our players didn't play, had a little rest. You've already clinched the playoffs, and at that point as well, clinched the second seed. So there's really no need to try much harder than they did. So ultimately, I was not surprised by a sweep. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't take at least one game, but it wasn't shocking to me. But let's talk about that Astros series and that Rockies series a little bit. But let's start with that Astros series.
Yeah, real quick, a little plug. If you guys are listening to this and you don't follow us on Instagram, go follow us on Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, both of our ads are listed right below. If not, we list them in the description of the episode. And just follow if you want to come listen to our live reactions after the game. We're probably going to be doing some lives after most of the Mariners playoff games to talk with you guys. I know I'll be doing full coverage, like lineup graphics, final graphics, news graphics, player graphics. I have a whole graphic package that I've built just for the playoffs. So there's going to be a lot of coverage, a lot of content that you can only get from looking on Instagram. So make sure you go follow all three of the accounts and really just enjoy what could be a really, really special Mariners postseason run. But yeah, the Astros series, and the story of this series was just the Mariners' utter domination of the Astros and how they walked into Houston and they did not trail a single inning in all three games. They blew them out basically every game. The second game looks close. It was 6-4. That's courtesy of a seventh inning, 2-out grand slam I'm pretty sure it was Paredes who hit the grand slam, or Pena. I can't quite remember. It was a little bit ago, but yeah, the Mariners starting pitching really set the tone. Their offense grabbed a lead early and they just never looked back. It was really awesome to see. Then that momentum carried right into the home series against the Rockies, and celebrations every night. First night, you get a playoff berth. They call it their 50% celebration. Next night, you clinch the division for the first time in, 24 years. Also, Cal hits 60 home runs that night. And then game 3, after that, you clinch the bye for the first time since 2001. So, just an amazing series. Just an amazing 6 games as a Mariners fan to watch. What were your thoughts, and how are you feeling about the upcoming potential playoff matchups?
Well, yeah, that the Astros series went better than I could have imagined. Honestly, I was hoping for 2 out of 3, and we walked out of that series with a comfortable 3 out of 3 sweep. Um, the boys just knew when to lock in. They locked in. They got the job done, clean. Like you said, really none of the games were close, minus that, and it was Jeremy Pena who hit that grand slam in the 7th. Other than that, the Mariners completely dominated. And it was so much fun to watch. And this Astros team, injured or not, struggle against the Mariners team. Finally, it feels like the tables turned, and all the momentum and all of the push was on our side. Yeah, and that Rockies series was, it's the Rockies, but it was electrifying. And I was fortunate to be able to go to the game where Cal hit the 60th home run. When he had that two homer game, and man, the vibes were high. Like, fans were just anticipating his next at bat. Leading up to that 60th home run, you had the whole stadium with a standing ovation chanting MVP, and I mean everywhere you could hear it everywhere in the ballpark. And the moment of him just hitting that home run was just so bliss. And I have some personal opinions on who's deserving more of the MVP award, but I will say in that moment, there's almost this feeling of like, how can he not win it? Like, with all the support and all this love, how could he not win it? Like, it would just be unpoetic if he didn't. But obviously, days past, realization hits you. It's not actually as far of a race as you think it is for that MVP award. But boys got the job done. End of the season just right, and we have won the division for the first time in many years, as you said.
And in the humble opinion of us, the season ended on Thursday against the Rockies.
Yep.
The Mariners actually only played 159 games this
Yep.
year.
Yep.
I'm not sure why they cut the last 3 out, but I'm not sure why the MLB decided to do that. But great job from the Mariners ending the season against the Rockies and just trying to turn their attention to the postseason and be healthy. So
absolutely,
they did play 3 exhibition games against the Dodgers that I'm not 100% sure if they counted for record or not, but the ballpark was still electric that weekend, and despite not being able to take any of those games, they really competed in each of those games. Despite pitchers being on pitch counts and people being in and out of the lineup for rest and injury prevention, and it was honestly just a celebration of the season at that point, and they didn't have to matter because you took care of business and won 17 out of your 18 before that. And I really don't think that series killed any of the momentum that this team has. I think the fans are just as excited as they were before the Dodgers series, and really excited to see who we get to match up with. So do you have any other comments before we start talking about some of the other postseason matchups?
Yeah, just please don't be one of those fans who's either stressing about that, like that Dodgers series. The Mariners were not necessarily phoning it in. They were not trying. So please do not worry about that series. They knew they were in. They knew they couldn't have moved. There's no point in trying to beat this Dodgers team when you're already in the playoffs. And also, yeah, that's it. Don't be that fan. Don't worry about it.
There's a lot of players in the lineup who were playing for personal milestones.
Yep.
And it looked like a lot of players who were playing for personal milestones. You saw Cal and Gino basically swing for the fence every single time they were up to bat trying to hit home runs. You saw Julio go out and get his 30-30. You saw Naylor get this 30 stolen bases. You just saw a lot of guys who they weren't really playing united as a team. I think there's a lot of individuality that was going on, and honestly, rightfully so. They earned the point to be at that point in their season and to have the season wrapped up, and they could do whatever they wanted for those 3 games, and it did not matter at all to me. So, And also the Dodgers continuously rolled out not their best lineup, but close to their best lineup. Like, Ohtani took all 5 of his ABs in the last game of the season, while we rolled out
Leo Rivas, Cole Young, we
we
Mitch
had our
Carver was
entire
playing.
bench. We called up Miles Mastrobuoni for 1 game so that our starter wouldn't have to play first base.
Yeah.
That's where we were at while the Dodgers were rolling out Mookie, Freddie, Shohei at the top of their lineup.
And when
Teoscar,
you
I was
think about
like,
that, when you think that they had all their starters in and starting pitching, and we had mostly our, if you will, second strings in, you look at that series and you go, huh, that's not as bad as I would have expected a, previously World Series winning Dodgers team to go up against half of the Tacoma Rainiers lineup. Like, it's, yeah.
yeah, like you look at the all 3 games, and besides the last game, I guess the first 2 games, the Mariners had an opportunity to win both those games going into the 9th inning. In the 9th inning, you have the bases loaded,
Mm-hmm.
2 outs, and Gino comes up to bat needing just 1 run, and he swings at 6 balls.
Yep.
And then in the next game is tied going into the 9th inning, and Munoz gives up 2 runs in the top of the 9th, and I guess that's what was the difference. And honestly,
Mm-hmm.
that's really all that I have to say on it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was fun games. They were fun to watch.
The Dodgers series was the Harry Ford playing in the major leagues series. That's all it
Yeah.
was. That's what it was for. It was just so Harry Ford could get some major league minutes.
And then shout out Harry Ford again for getting his first major league
Absolutely.
AB,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't. I mean, first major league hit. My apologies. Obviously he had the sac fly earlier, but
Right.
he came up big, and glad to see him play. And turning our attention now a little bit more towards the playoffs, I wanted to get your thoughts really quickly on these scrimmages that the Mariners are holding on Thursday and Friday. It sounds like a lot of the top prospects in the organization are going to be called up to kind of help play in these mock games. It sounds like Cole Emerson will probably be there. It sounds like Laz will also probably be there.
Nice.
I haven't really heard any names on the pitching side of things. But I think it's a really cool idea. I think having some of these matchups, like there's talking about on the broadcast, potentially seeing Cal Raleigh get real ABs in a live setting versus Logan Gilbert. You can see Munoz face Julio. Like, just the potential to see some of that is really cool to me, and also to give the prospects a taste of what it's like to prepare for the postseason, and also for them to just be around the team and fans have a chance to watch these scrimmages. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's honestly a really cool idea to have the prospects come up. I actually really like that idea. As somebody who, as a Kraken fan, pays close attention to our prospects pool, and that's something that the NHL and the Kraken are very good about, is as often as you can, get your prospects to come to Seattle and to get chances to get reps in the majors or to get chances to get reps in practice with the NHL team in itself. It's a really cool idea, and I think it'll be really fun for those who go to those scrimmages. I got invited to one, but unfortunately, I will be working during the time of both of them, so I will miss both of them. But I'm very curious to see what their thoughts are in person, being there, of kind of what the vibes are, the fans around watching, and maybe how they think the prospects are going to be or do in however whatever format they do in the games. It should be a nice way for some of those players for the prospects to have fun and kind of get an opportunity to see where they're going to be eventually playing, but also for the guys who are already playing on the team to get a chance to kind of stay warm and build up that anticipation towards the first playoff series that we'll be playing in this 2025-26 playoff season.
Yeah, and looking ahead to Saturday, so they'll play the scrimmages Thursday, Friday, and then we'll have the first game in Seattle on Saturday. Time is still to be decided. It's most likely going to be, I think, the 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time start. Just based off some people's assumptions about TV contracts and such. Also, the Sounders are hosting the Portland Timber that night, which is also a game that draws a big crowd. And I imagine that given the opportunity between two pretty equal time slots, they'll opt for the one that allows the games to happen at separate points in time.
Yep.
Because you're looking at a sold out 48,000 for the Mariners game, plus around 40,000 for the Sounders game. So looking at almost 90,000 people in Soto at the same time would just be a disaster. We've seen what that kind of looks like on just Mariners and Sounders regular season games with no rivalries and no playoffs, and that still doesn't go great. So I'd imagine they'll have the 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time start. But looking at that matchup between the Guardians and the Tigers, who today the I believe the Tigers won game 1
They did.
behind a
Yep.
ridiculous start from Tariq Skubal.
Mm-hmm.
So they just need one more in the next 2 days, and they'll be coming to Seattle on Saturday. What are your kind of thoughts slash hopings for who the Mariners will see on Saturday?
It's interesting because I feel like both teams worry me and don't worry me equally. Like the Tigers, I feel like have better starting pitching all around, like Scooble or not, but their bullpen definitely feels weaker. But both teams can hit fairly well. I feel like the Tigers lineup feels a little bit more lethal. So I guess if you're asking me which team would you rather face for a better chance at making it to the ALCS, it might be the Guardians. But then at the same time, the Guardians went on an absolute tear, much like the Mariners at the end of the season. And even though that they are not entering the playoffs with that same heat coming in, obviously losing 2-1 today and striking out 14 times to just Scooble alone, it's still, something you have to keep your eye on of, well, this team was hot coming into the playoffs. So is that the team you want to continue to be facing? Obviously, they find themselves down in this series now. But really, both teams, I think the Mariners are better. The bottom line is that the Mariners are better than both teams, honestly.
Yep.
And that's why I'm not too worried about, I don't want to overlook this ALDS series, but I also am more looking forward to whoever we play in the ALCS, because that's the series that I'm most looking forward to, which will unfortunately probably be the Blue Jays. I don't see the Yankees or Red Sox getting past them, but we'll see. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, like the Guardians had the 29th best offense in baseball. Only one team was worse than them this season in a lot of categories. They only have 2 batters in their everyday lineup that have a WRC plus of over 100, and their three-hole hitter, or maybe he's up to their 4-hole hitter now, but in Rodriguez was hitting 190 in the regular season with an OPS in the 4s. So that's about all you need to know about the Guardians. Also, their season's on the line tomorrow, and they're rounding out Tanner Bybee, who had an ERA of 4.5 almost in the regular season. So the Guardians, though, you say all that, and yet they just have some magic that just continuously pops up.
Yep.
And you almost saw it today, where they're down by 1 in the 9th inning, and Jose Ramirez turns a ground out into a triple because of an error, and they almost come back, and they just find ways to win. And for me, I think I'd rather play the Tigers, to be honest. The Mariners have faced off really well against the Tigers. I personally think that the Tigers starting pitching is a little bit weaker than the Guardians, besides Scooble, once you pass that first guy. Also, you saw Scooble today. I think he ended up, 7 2/3 on 107 pitches.
Phew.
The first possible game he could be available for, if you pitch him on 4 days rest after throwing 107 pitches, he'll be available for the first game of the DS, which I would probably say that that's what the Tigers would do. So even in that scenario, you're not getting your normal Scooble that you're used to facing, as he's going to be pitching Tuesday to Saturday. And so the Mariners have faced off really well against Scooble the last few years, which is surprising because he's just been dominant against everybody else. And so for me, I would rather face the Tigers. And I was pretty happy that they won today. And I think the Guardians have just given us a headache over the last few years. They just slap hit, sack bunt, bloop hit, somehow infield single, find a way to get a run across, and that type of baseball is just infuriating for me to watch.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I thinking I'm just looking at their lineups now, which I'm not familiar with either of them very well, and just kind of seeing. I think I'd probably rather face the Tigers, not because their lineup is more or less lethal. In fact, I would argue it might be more lethal. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, we've handled these players before. You know, and like you actually said exactly what I was going to say. Was it feels like the Guardians always seem to find a way with us. So I would much rather face the Tigers.
I will say the Tigers do have 3 pretty talented left-handed hitters between Riley Green, Parker Meadows, and Kerry Carpenter that they can roll out there, which does make me a little bit nervous. Well, honestly, the Guardians have Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez, and Kyle Manzardo, who are also 3 pretty talented lefties. I believe. Wait, let me check that. I believe Manzardo's a lefty. Yes, he is. And so either way, you're kind of facing a team that has a lot of power in their left-handed bats, which is a little bit scary for our pitching staff. And so at the end of the day, I think these two teams are very similar, and I'd rather get the team that just came off a collapse. And either way, go Guardians tomorrow and make this series go to 3. And so either way, you got to make extra innings throwing on guys by playing an extra game on Thursday and only allowing 1 day rest, and then they'll be in Seattle. So go Guardians tomorrow and then go Tigers on Thursday is my vote.
Absolutely.
Looking just at some of the other playoff series that's going on right now, we have Boston versus New York. Boston took the first game today behind a really just dominant performance from Crochet, who also goes 7 2/3, 117 pitches with 11 Ks. Yankees offense was silenced today. Judge did go 2 for 4. Goldschmidt went 2 for 4. Volpe hit a home run for the Yankees' only run. They had a chance in the 9th inning to tie the game. They had bases loaded, nobody out, and Aroldis Chapman just shut the door. I would be scared of the Red Sox. They have really good pitching. Chapman is obviously an absolute animal. I was really hoping that the Yankees would win this series because I think they're a weaker team, and I would feel really confident in us beating the Yankees or the Blue Jays. To be honest, the Red Sox scare me the most out of any team in the AL. But it looks like the Red Sox are probably going to get the job done tomorrow. Honestly, if I was to guess, they have Brian Bello going in Carlos Rodon. Who are you kind of rooting for in this series, and who would you be more scared of the Mariners facing, the Red Sox or the Yankees?
It's funny. It's funny that you actually mentioned that about the Red Sox. 'Cause I have not paid much attention to them this year, and was surprised when I found out they made the playoffs. Because the last time that I had really checked in on them, and I can't give you a timeline on that, but last time I really checked in on them, I was like, yeah, this team isn't very good. I'm not too worried about them. But obviously, they clinched playoffs. They're here. And looking at their lineup, I'm actually impressed with who they've gotten here. I feel like, oh man, I feel like we know the Yankees so well, and it's either going to be they're going to, play us tough, or we're going to play them tougher. I feel like based off of the Yankees are another team that doesn't have a lot of strength in their bullpen. If I'm
No,
correct.
their bullpen's very bad.
Yeah, so I feel like with that being said, I'd much rather go with a Yankee because the Mariners will pick apart bad pitching. Now, with that being said, the Mariners also have a history of taking a pitcher with a +6 ERA and making him look like prime Felix Hernandez, and then taking Paul Skeens the next day and hitting 8 hits off of him over the course of 5 innings or something, just for example. But The Mariners will pick apart bad bullpens and get in, one run here, a couple hits there. So I think also in a high leverage series as well, our pitching is going to come to life. I know our chaos ball is going to happen. I think the Yankees do not do well in those scenarios, so I'd much rather take them over the Red Sox.
Yeah, I agree. And then a little brief overview that the Cubs took the game one from the Padres today, and the Dodgers are currently beating the doors off the Reds, and we should not allow the Dodgers to play in the wild card again because that seems pretty unfair.
Shout out to the Mets for having the most historical fall off in that second half of the year and not giving the Dodgers any challenge. That was really depressing to watch. Even though I'm not a Mets fan or anything, it was just depressing to watch.
Yeah, the Dodgers right now they're up 8-1, 10 hits, 5 home runs in just 6 innings.
Shohei has 2 of those homers too.
Shohei just hit a ball 454 feet. So there's the Dodgers for you, who continuously are slept on, I think, right now. I think there's a lot of attention on the Phillies and the Brewers, and rightfully so because...
Sorry, I have a brief interjection. I have a thought about the Dodgers, and this just came to me today while I was listening to another podcast. In this other podcast, somebody had mentioned to me, or not somebody, they had mentioned in the podcast, it's a hockey podcast, so bear with me here. The Edmonton Oilers are a team that does not often win the division as of late because they are not a regular season team. They are a playoff team. That feels like the Dodgers to me. The Dodgers are that team who throughout the regular season will make the playoffs. Like, they're good enough to make the playoffs. They're more than good enough. But they will make the playoffs, but they won't do it in all these flashy ways. They won't always win the division. They won't always have, the most incredible season by all of their players. Like, obviously, you have Shohei. He's always going to have a great season. And you could throw in, like, Mookie Betts and maybe Freddie Freeman, one or the other. But they're that team that will, make it to the playoffs in the 3 seed, and people will sleep on them. And then they'll make the playoffs, and it's painfully obvious that they're the best team in the playoff branch in the NLCS because they're a playoff team. They play to get to the playoffs. They play to win in the playoffs.
I will say I agree with that, except for the fact that they do always win the division. They won the division in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Right.
So
that was
every year but 21.
Right.
But that I do think that they underperform with the amount of talent that they have in the regular season, because you had a lot of people who this year thought that this team had the potential to possibly break the Mariners' 116 wins.
Right.
Because, like, on paper they look so dominant, and they're a team that finished with 93 wins, far under that mark. So, but I think that a lot of attention went to the Phillies and the Brewers because of what they did do in the regular season. And the Dodgers, I think, are probably still the best team in the NL. And they're just not. I see so many people picking the Phillies to beat them in the NLDS, like it's just a given, when I think that series is going to be incredible, and I could really see it going either way.
With that being said, the Phillies window is closing, and they are in now or never mode. And I think they're going to put up. I think they're going to put up a much bigger fight this season than they have in past seasons this playoff than they have in the last few playoffs against the Dodgers. This is their window to win it all.
Yeah. That being said, like I said, if you guys want more coverage from us throughout the week, instead of just these weekly episodes, go follow us on Instagram. Come talk to us during the week, especially this week with the Mariners playoffs. Hopefully this weekend goes awesome. Enjoy it, Seattle. It's a special season. Get out to the ballpark if you can. If not, find a good group of buddies to watch the game with. Just have some fun. Hopefully next week at this time we are talking about how they swept through the the ALDS, and are looking forward to the ALCS. Or at a minimum, they won those 2 home games, and we're looking in a good position to set ourselves up. So that's all the thoughts that I have. You want to close us out?
Absolutely. Yeah, great episode. Great talk here about the Mariners. Super excited to see them be playing in the ALDS for the first time in a few years. And obviously winning the division. Always great. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. As we've previously stated, we're on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. But if you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions, or anything for us, we'd love to answer those questions for you here on the podcast or on our pages separately. But we thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for all the love and support, and we will see you in the next episode.
Peace.